We want to welcome you to an exciting evening for celebrating what is about what we call ranked choice voting in New York City. Bedford Central have always been the forefront of making sure that we have an educated community and that we participate in the process. So we are delighted to welcome you today. We are grateful for what you're going to hear that we can implement and make a difference in this wonderful borough and this city we call New York City. Just before I do that, I want to remind all our audience who are watching that next weekend is Mother's Day weekend, and we will have a wonderful program planned for you here in our church. So please check the website for all the 3 events for Friday night, Saturday, and next Sunday. But right now, I want to just pause and give God thanks for the opportunity to share with you some knowledge and to welcome once again to our church the dynamic and newly elected Assemblywoman, Ms. Stephanie Zimmerman, who has taken our country, our city by storm, and looking forward to the part she's going to come to play in transforming this great borough of Brooklyn from the Assembly 56th District here in Brooklyn. We thank God for her. Let's pray together. Gracious God, we thank you so much for the opportunity we have. We recognize with knowledge our city, our country, our people will perish. So come by now and be in our minds, our dialogue, be in our desire to transform and to inform. So we ask now that you be with this presentation, allow everything to go, that our people will move from where they are to where they should be in making a difference in this borough. Be in our conversation now. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Without much further ado, introduce us to our Assemblywoman, Ms. Stephanie Zimmerman. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Pastor Neil. It is wonderful to be back in the house of the Lord at Bedford Central Presbyterian Church. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this very important conversation. Many of you know that I am very civically active myself, so I always encourage young people and our constituents to be civically engaged. And to be civically engaged is to be an active voter. So I'm very happy to be here and co-hosting this conversation with my colleague on ranked choice voting. I just want to underscore a couple of things before we get started with the presentation. I want to just say and reiterate to you all just how important it is for us all to vote, and vote in every election. Elections have consequences, as we can all see with the election of President Biden. There has been a historic investment of trillions of dollars into our state. The New York State Assembly recently passed a $212 billion budget. We would not have been able to pass that budget and provide the much needed resources for education and health care and our infrastructure without the help of President Biden and the American Rescue Plan. Representation matters because without Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who represents our district, without Congresswoman Yvette Clarke and Nydia Vasquez, Brooklyn would not have received the record number of dollars that we did in funding. They have been serving us well over the years, and when the election was over, they already had a blueprint in place because they had been listening to you about what your needs were in Brooklyn. And so they were able to bring those resources to the table and get it into the state in record time. And so we want to thank them for their work. But we're here to talk about another historic time. We're here to talk about what's happening in the 2021 elections. This year, for the first time, New York City will be using ranked choice voting to decide who is going to be our next mayor, our next New York City comptroller, our next borough president, and our city council person. And so I want you all to think about this for just a moment. The mayor is responsible for every city agency. And so when you think about how you feel about the Health and Hospital Corporation, or when you feel about the New York City public school system or other social services, Are those agencies serving you? And of all of the candidates that are running for mayor right now, who do you think is going to decide the best leadership to run those agencies in order to bring you the resources and the help that you need and you deserve? So I want you to think about those things as you're thinking about and learning about ranked choice voting today. The comptroller is responsible for the city's pocketbook, and we have a almost $100 billion budget here at the city alone. And so we want to make sure that that person is fiscally responsible, that holds our values where it comes to money, and knows what they're doing. When we started the campaign season, they were talking about a $15 billion deficit. That's a lot of money. And so who has been paying attention, who has been investing our money wisely, and making sure that our coffers are there to provide all of the services that we want. So we want you to pay particular attention to that person who wants to run for, or the people who are running for New York City Comptroller. Next is our city council person, and the city council person is much like my position in that they are responsible for a district. So I'm proud to represent the 56th district, which covers Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights. And so there are 51 council districts, and neighborhoods get a chance to choose who they want as their city council person. So I'm just going to say one thing about the city council person, because I love budgets, and I hope you all do. Every city council person gets $500,000 in program or expense dollars, right? And that means they can invest that money with any not-for-profit in your neighborhood. They also get $5 million in capital funding. And so when you look at who's running and who's talking about becoming your next city council person, think about, do they have the expertise? Do they have the knowledge of your neighborhood to know who to give those funds to? Have they had decision-making ability on that level? Have they had the experience of making those types of decisions in the past? And that's how then you should rank your people. But remember, that's a lot of money for one person to be responsible for. So the most important thing is you want that person to be in dialogue with you and your community so that you can tell them how you want to spend that money. Because after all, it is your tax dollars. And then finally, our borough president is responsible for the entire borough. And again, this is a position that is very important in terms of constituent services. They have to be in dialogue with every neighborhood, and we're all proud of our neighborhoods. You know, I proudly wear my 56th district pin, so I want everybody to know that Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights is the best. Other neighborhoods feel the same way. And so that borough president has to be a great ambassador for the borough, but they also have to have a very specific relationships with different neighborhoods, and they have to be able to address their needs. And then come up with priorities for the entire borough and see those things out. So we want to pay special attention to that position as well, because you have to be a great ambassador, and you should have demonstrated that already if you're running for the position. And finally, I just want to kind of echo the words from today's sermon that Pastor Neil gave us, and it is being progressive in your predicament. And right now, we are still in a pandemic, and so I want to remind everybody, use their sanitizer, wear your mask, socially distance, stay at home if you're not feeling well. These are very, very important. Take the vaccine if you are able. If you are unable to take the vaccine, make sure that you're taking care of your immune system, and make sure that you are staying at home or being very careful when you're out in public, because the only way that we're going to recover from this pandemic is if we all work together and do what we're supposed to be doing. But in this time, what I want to say is, there are so many people who have lost loved ones, they've lost their jobs, they've had a really tough year. That means it is incumbent upon those of us who have the ability to move around and share information to do so. And so some people aren't going to be able to absorb all that Karen is going to share with us today, but those of us who understand it, who get the knowledge, It is our job to talk to them, to share this information, to help them make a good decision, and most importantly, do all of that so that they can vote. For those who cannot come out and vote, we want to make sure that they are participating in absentee voting, and they can get that on their application online. They don't have to leave their house for that. We want to make sure that people utilize the early voting system, and so that you're not there on election day when a lot of people are voting and you may get exposed to someone. So please, 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 I'm a public servant, and those of you who belong to this church and beyond are faithful and servants of the Lord, and so you know that it is our responsibility to take care of the least of these. And this is one of those moments that we can be very progressive and do what we need to do to take care of our fellow citizens and make sure that they are able to exercise their vote. So without further ado, I am going to turn over the presentation so that we all can learn more about ranked choice voting.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Stephanie Zinnemann. You hit on a lot of very, very important points as usual. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here and for co-hosting with me. And thank you so much, Reverend, for inviting my participation here today and, pairing me with the fabulous assembly member here. Bedford Central, good afternoon, and welcome again. Our presentation today will be around ranked choice voting. As the assembly member said, elections have consequences, and it's imperative that we vote. And when we vote this year, there's a new method of voting for primary and special elections, and that is what we want to engage you on this afternoon. So we have some slides. If we can bring it up, and I'll start. So again, my name is Karen Wharton, and the presentation today is on ranked choice voting in NYC, in New York City. I am an education organizer with the organization Rank to Vote NYC, and we are delighted to bring this training here to this wonderful community. Next slide, please. So I've been making this presentation, to some other organizations in the borough of Brooklyn. But I was speaking with my sister recently, and she said to me, Karen, this sounds great, but it seems as though it's kind of sudden. Where did this come from? So I'd like to start the presentation with an overview on how we got to this point where this afternoon we're actually speaking on ranked choice voting. Next slide. So how did we get here? Well, those of you who remember, in 2009, there was a costly, low turnout runoff election held here in the city for public advocate and city controller. For the public advocate race that year, there was this man called Bill de Blasio, and he ran against Mark Green. In a city of at the time, a little less than 3 million registered Democrats, less than 250,000 people participated in that citywide election. And it prompted a debate over the use of runoff elections. So the following year, then City Council member Gail Brewer introduced the first ranked choice voting bill in the city of New York. Fast forward to 2019, when the Charter Revision Commission met to review the New York City Charter, which is our constitution. And they reviewed a wide array of issues, and one thing they were looking to do is to improve and increase civic engagement. They heard from a wide number of leaders and experts across New York City, community organizers, ordinary folks like ourselves. And the one thing that kept popping up time and time again was this idea of ranked choice voting. So the City Charter Commission voted 14-1 to put RCV, ranked choice voting, before New York City voters so that we can determine whether or not it is something we would like to pursue. Well, New Yorkers voted nearly 75% in favor of ranked choice voting, and here we are in 2021 where we're seeing the implementation of ranked choice voting elections. Next slide. So that, in conjunction with a very robust campaign finance system where the city matches $8 to every $1 you give to your favorite candidate, provided it meets certain criteria. So your dollar is really worth $9. And the implementation of term limits, what we're seeing today is a wealth of diverse candidates. Many of them, or some of them, are from the same communities, represent the same demographics, who under the old system would have risked splitting the community vote. Also, under the old system of voting, city council members were elected with a plurality, meaning the person with the most votes. But in some instances, that meant candidates won with as little as 20% of the vote. That meant that 80% of the community did not select the candidate. And that is neither good for democracy nor governing. Next slide. So what is changing, or what has changed, is that starting this year, all local primary and special elections for city council, borough president, public advocate, city controller, and mayor will be, they are, ranked choice voting elections. We've had 4 already in the city so far, 4 special elections. I'd like to point out to you that this ranked choice voting elections covers only municipal, New York City municipal races. It does not cover DA judgeships. It doesn't cover gubernatorial races. It doesn't cover assembly races. It doesn't cover national races. And it's only for primary and special elections. So this doesn't cover November elections, general elections. Another big change is that runoffs have been eliminated, and candidates need to win with at least 50% plus 1 of the vote. And you, voters, you now have the option in races that have 3 or more candidates, you have the option of ranking your top 5 candidates, including a write-in, if you so choose. Next slide. So, public service announcement, to echo what Assembly members Zinnemann said. Primary election this year will be held on Tuesday, June 22nd. The last day to register to vote is May 28th. We're having early voting. It will run from Saturday, June 12th through Sunday, June 20th. And on election day, the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's very important that you vote. Elections have consequences. Next slide. So you're here and you're probably asking, what is ranked choice voting anyway? Well, ranked choice voting is where it is what it sounds like, where you, the voter, you get to choose your top 5 candidates and rank them in order of your preference. So your first choice is the candidate you love. This is the candidate when, after you have analyzed based on what, or some of what Assembly member mentioned, the candidates, their backgrounds, and you will determine that this candidate, this first choice, is the person that you think will do the most for your community. this is the candidate who you believe has values that are closely aligned with yours, this is the candidate that you want to have represent you. Your second choice then is the candidate that you like. Of your 10 must-haves, your first choice has all 10, your second choice has 8 or 9. Another way of looking at it is, if something were to happen to your first choice tomorrow, and they have to leave the race, you will still want to vote, and your second choice will now become your first choice. So your second choice is a backup to your first choice. And your third, fourth, and fifth choices are similar backups to your more higher ranked choices. Next slide. You're also probably asking, why ranked choice voting? Well, first, it saves money. Runoffs are costly, elections are costly. Some runoffs cost $15 million just to bring the machines out and have very few people show up to vote. Another reason why ranked choice voting is we eliminate the spoiler or split votes effect. So this way, let's say in the current race, mayoral race we have right now, I think there are like 12 people have made it to ballot. But some of those guys, some of the folks represent similar communities. Now, in the past, the folks who were from similar communities some of them would probably be encouraged to wait their turn out of fear that, for instance, I think there were like maybe 4 African Americans in the mayoral race this year. And in the past, maybe some would probably be encouraged to not run out of fear that the black community's vote will be split. Well, with ranked choice voting, we don't have to worry about that. You can simply vote, you can simply rank the candidates based on your values. So they all can run. So what that allows is for new voices and new perspectives to enter races, and then you, the voter, you decide which one you would want to choose as your first choice, and so on. It also helps to build consensus, because when you do your rankings, which we'll talk about a little bit more, yes, you want your first choice to win. But if your first choice doesn't win, you'll have a second choice, and you and your community will coalesce ultimately around a candidate. So it helps to build consensus that way. And it discourages negative campaigning, because in order for candidates to win, to get a majority, they have to reach out to communities that are not necessarily part of their base. And in so doing, when they reach out, they cannot be insulting other candidates that community might be interested in, because they'll risk alienating the community vote that way. Now, these are great, and I need to point out that ranked choice voting is not a panacea. It is not a cure-all, but it's an improvement over the way things have been. Next slide. So we talk about ranked choice voting is new. It's a new system. It's new to New York for local elections, in primary and special elections, but it's not a new system. It's used across the United States in a variety of communities. It's used in the state of Maine. It's used in the Midwest, in Minneapolis and Paul. It's used in the Southwest, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's used on the West Coast in the Bay Area. And what this does for us here in New York, clearly we're the largest municipality to have ranked choice voting right now. But what it does is it affords us, we basically benefit from lessons learned when ranked choice voting was rolled out in these other areas. And one other thing, those of you who have long memories, and if you recall the Board of Education's Community School Board, back in the day, I feel like it's like 20 years ago or so, maybe not that long, those were ranked choice voting elections as well. So we have confidence that here in New York, we benefit from ranked choice voting in other communities, and we're going forward. Next slide. So what is ranked choice voting? The who, the what, the why, the where. So when you speak with your neighbors, this is what you can consider sharing with them, that starting in 2021, New York City voters will have the option of ranking their top 5 candidates in local primary and special elections for mayor, controller, public advocate, borough president, and city council. If voters still want to vote for just one candidate, they can. And the whys. By ranking, voters needn't worry about wasting their vote. If there's someone you really like, you can rank them your first choice. And you can include other choices. You should also rank other candidates if that's what you want to do, right? And also, with ranked choice voting, as I mentioned, there's no split in the vote, and we don't accidentally help elect someone from outside of the community that we do not support. Next slide. So voter education is a team effort. The Campaign Finance Board, the Board of Elections, City Council, all are currently involved in voter education and outreach. However, you are able to reach people that I can't. You know who your neighbors are, you have your network. So part of why we're here today is we're talking about it, but we're really encouraging you to also talk about it with the people in your network. So this way, our community will be even more empowered in advance of election in June. Next slide. So how does ranked choice voting work anyway? Next slide. We have a video. Let's play the video, please. Yeah.
I love the fact that we have ways in which people can practice before they go to the polls, because people are always afraid to make a mistake. But do remember, when you go to the polls, if you go to the polls to the vote, if you make a mistake, you can always go to the inspector and ask for another ballot in order for you to recast your, to cast your vote. So don't worry about that. And like today, when we're having some technical difficulties, you can do a little do-over. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is really, and with, as Assembly Person said, if you are voting in person and you make any sort of mistake whatsoever, you're entitled to 2 additional ballots. So you simply just ask for it, and it's your right, and you can do that. Right? And also, I think it's imperative that people begin to draft some kind of plan, a voting plan. We talked about early elections running from June 12th through June 20th, and then of course election day. So, and there's absentee vote and mail-in. So do figure out, do come up, do have a plan.
Yes.
Plan which day you're going to vote. I would suggest that you plan in advance who you're going to rank and how. This way, when you walk into the ballot, into the booth, you are prepared.
You know exactly what you're going to do. All righty. We're going to practice now.
Hi, I'm Mahir, and welcome to my bodega. As you may know, New York City has a new way to vote in special and primary elections. So, how does ranked choice voting work? The next time you vote in a city election, instead of choosing just one candidate, you can rank them all from your first choice to your fifth. Here's how it works. Let's say my bodega is picking its featured snack of the month. So many choices. Which one should I feature? This customer ranks Parker Pretzels as her top favorite. She also ranks her second choice, Mr. Chips, third choice, Chi-Chi Chicharrones, fourth choice, Gladys Gummies, and fifth choice, Poppy Popcorn. Other customers rank their choices as well. If Parker Pretzels is the favorite choice and wins more than 50% of all the first-ranked choices, then Parker Pretzels is the winner and is featured as the snack of the month. However, if no snack gets more than 50%, then the least popular snack is eliminated. Sorry, Figgy Bars. The remaining second-ranked choices from customers who chose Figgy Bars are redistributed. So if customers chose chips and chicharrones as second choices, then those two snacks receive additional votes. The new totals are counted and the process repeats until there's a winner of the final two. Congrats, Poppy Popcorn, you're the bodega snack favorite. Back in the real world, before it's time to vote for humans, visit rankthevotenyc.org for more information. Thank you, New York City, for voting and for making these special and primary elections your elections.
Clearly, I voted in this poll because I love popcorn. But I want to just make a plug. The last day to vote is May 28th. A lot of our young people will be graduating, and I hope that all of you will remember to put in their gift card a application to register to vote, because we need our young people involved in our democracy as well. We want to make sure that they understand this as well and participate.
Yeah, and there is, I think,
And they can we can pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yes.
So you can register them as well, and so as soon as they turn 18, they'll just be able to show up at the polls. So we're doing the best that we can to make sure that our young folks are civically engaged and voting in every election, which is every year. Not every 4 years, not every 2 years. Every single year there is some sort of election.
primary and
General election. We have our own commercial.
Yeah, I agree. Can we continue with the slides, please? So this is what your ballot is likely to look like, where the candidates for each race, the candidates' names will be listed in rows, and to the right you'll have columns with the various choices, 1 through 5. So let's say you choose Jess as your first choice. You would have had that plan. You go into the booth and you look for Jess's name, and you move across to the column that has first choice and you fill in the bubble. And then let's say you wanted Oba as your second choice. You'll locate Oba's name, and you move over to the column that indicates second choice, and you fill in the bubble. And there is also the write-in. If you choose to use the write-in, you can also rank that as one of your 5 choices. Next slide. So there are these things called rounds, count-in rounds. Basically, the night of election, what you'll learn is the tally of all in-person first choice votes for each candidate. But the official winner will not be declared until all the votes have been counted, including early votes, election day, affidavit, absentee, military votes. Now, if after all of the votes, the first choices have been tallied, no one receives 50% plus one of first choice votes, that's when the ranked choice voting actually kicks in, and we begin to eliminate the lower vote getters and redistribute the votes based on second choice that the voters would have indicated. At this point, I'd like to, I know we offered you a mock election, a mock ranked choice voting election. I'd like to go over that as best as I could with you so that you can see ranked choice voting in action. So I am going to share my screen. And today's mock election is, which historic black leader would you like to see on the $100 bill? Now I know that not everyone, because technology is great, but it's not the greatest, it's not all the way there yet. So not everyone might be able to see this on their screens. So I'll try my best to talk you through it. So here is the candidates. And we have Rosa Parks, Shirley Chisholm, Frederick Douglass, Bayard Rustin, Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Malcolm X, John Lewis, and Ida B. Wells. So I would have done my research and figure out which one represents my values, which top 5, and so I will vote based on my values. And so I will vote Shirley Chisholm first, Rosa Parks second, Martin Luther King third, Okay, so peer pressure, Ida B. Wells fourth, because I spoke with my neighbor, and my neighbor gave me some information about Ida B, and I'm like, yes, you know, that's great. She does align with my values. And then I will vote John Lewis. I then submit, and I go to the next screen that says preliminary results, because this is the one I'd really like to show you. Okay. And what it's, if you're able to see the screen, it says that 354 votes have been in already. We've been running this mock election across the city in various trainings. So 50% plus 1 of 354 is 178. I'm not doing the math today. I'm assuming that this is right. So let's see what happens after all the first choices have been tallied. Okay, so we have Shirley Chisholm. She has 84. She's number 1. Martin Luther King, 65, number 2. John Lewis, 3, at 43 votes. And it goes all the way down with Bayard Rustin. He's at the bottom with 13. No one made 50% plus 1, so we will begin going through additional rounds, the second round. So this is where ranked choice voting kicks in. And so what we'll do then is we look at Bayard Rustin. He garnered 13 first choice votes. We're going to eliminate him as a candidate, but the 13 people who voted for him, we're going to look at who those 13 people chose as their second choice, and the votes will go to their second choice candidate. Now, I'm wearing glasses. I can't see too good. The print is small. It goes by really quickly. So I tend to look to see whether the first two candidates, whether they inherit any of these redistributed votes. So let's see. I'm going to eliminate Rustin. And it looks like Shirley got 4 votes. And who else got? Where did his votes go? I can't tell, right? But the 13 votes were distributed based on second choice candidates. And so in New York, we have what is called final two. We keep eliminating the lower vote getters and redistributing until there are 2 candidates left in the race, and one of them is the winner. So next is Maya Angelou. She's eliminated. Her 22 votes goes. I see Shirley got some. Martin got a couple. Ida B goes next. And we keep going through this process until 2 candidates are left in the race, and one of them has a majority. And that majority, that person is Shirley Chisholm in this example. The other thing I want to point out is that listed at the bottom here is exhausted votes 13. What that means is that of the 354 people who participated in this election, only 13 did not have Shirley Chisholm or Martin Luther King anywhere on their ballots. So either they just didn't use all of their rankings, or they chose 5 of the candidates that were eliminated earlier. Either way, they did not select Shirley or Martin. So what this says is that clearly Shirley and Martin, especially Shirley because she's the winner, Shirley is a consensus candidate. She might not have been everyone's first choice, but a large majority of her, or a majority of her district, say they want her either as their first, second, third, fourth, or fifth choice. And this is kind of what ranked choice voting does. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the presentation, please. So Assembly member, while we wait. So we saw that there were 13 people whose votes, whose ballots were exhausted. And part of that could be that they selected 5 candidates who were eliminated earlier on. Or it could be that they didn't use all 5, but however, whatever they did, their selection had been eliminated before the final round. So one of the things we're talking to folks about is to use their rankings.
Yes, we know that for years, people have voted majority rule, and like everything else, voting is exercising a muscle. Like every time you have muscle memory if you keep doing something. So you are going to want to just go in and vote for your top candidate and leave after you stood online and made the commitment to go out and vote. But as you can see, we want to make sure that people have as many options as possible, and that the people that you like all have a fair chance. And the only way they can all have a fair chance is if you rank across the spectrum 1 through 5. So please don't go in and vote. I like Karen Wharton, so I'm going to make her my #1 all the way across. You can't do that. And you actually lose out if you only vote for her one time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I started to talk about what folks should expect on election night. We're used to in the past that election night a winner would be declared. That's probably going to not happen as often going forward. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that we're having, because of COVID, a large number of absentee votes. And the state of New York's election law says that absentee ballots cannot be counted until 7 days after election. And so this gives us, those of us who are using the postal service to mail in our ballots, which is what absentees are, well, absentee, you can drop it off as well, I think.
You can drop it off in locations, a poll site or the Board of Elections in your borough or downtown. And then sometimes, depending on the building structure that you live in, they may even have a post there.
Right. So, but in order to allow those ballots to get in, to get to the Board of Election, and there's a delay, 7 days. So essentially, on election night, you'll have unofficial results of only the first choice counts. But once all of the votes have been counted, if no one has 50% plus one, that's when you'll see the redistribution of the lower vote getters. So I'm asking folks, I'm basically alerting folks to have patience and not think that something's afoot or anything if you don't know who the winner is on election night. It's nothing to do with RCV. If we can pull back, and we remember in November, it took days for us to know, to learn who the official winner was in Georgia. And Georgia didn't have RCV. What they had was a large number of absentee ballots. So please be patient. It may take 3 weeks or so before we learn who the winners are here in New York. Next slide.
Absolutely. And I just want to just underscore one of your points. I think it's actually going to be pretty exciting if we don't have a winner, an obvious winner, because you'll all be looking with anticipation as to what the next round will look like. And then what if we go to a third round or a fourth round? So I'm actually pretty excited about that. And given the number of candidates that have exercised their constitutional rights to vote, we may well have to go through 5 rounds in some cases. Right. So that's going to be good.
We're always going to go to the final 2. So whatever it takes to eliminate the lower ones, the final 2 is the way the law was written here in New York.
Absolutely.
So so we've been talking about the rankins. Why should you use your rankins? Because rankins give you more choice, more power. You can now vote your favorite candidate and not worry about wasting your vote, because even if your favorite candidate doesn't win, you still have a voice in who is ultimately elected if you use your rankings. So in the example, the mock election, Mr. Rustin came in last. 13 people thought that he should have been on the $100 bill on the note. Now, they might have been talking to their neighbors, and everybody would say, oh, he can't win, nope, this, that, whatever. But those 13 people, that's who they wanted to vote for. They voted for him. Once he was eliminated, their votes were not thrown out. Their votes then went to their second choice candidate. So what this does for us as voters is that we can vote our conscience without worrying about wasting our vote, providing you use your rankings. If you like Bayard Rustin, you vote for Bayard Rustin. And you also use your rankings to vote for other folks. And remember, ranking a second, third, fourth, or fifth choice candidate will not hurt your favorite candidate, because the system doesn't look at those additional choices unless your first choice is eliminated. Next slide. So we have there are some frequently asked questions. We try to anticipate them. Next slide. First one, hey, how many candidates do I rank? Well, you can rank up to 5 candidates, as many or as few as you like. Next slide. Do I have to use all of my rankings? No, you do not. your vote will still count if you only rank one or a couple candidates.
However,
However, the power of a ranked choice ballot lies in the rankings. The more rankings you choose, the longer your ballot will stay in the race, so to speak. So, if you choose Bayard Rustin as your first choice, he's eliminated. They'll look at your second choice is eliminated, they'll look at your third, and so on. So I encourage you to use your rankings. Now, if there are 6 candidates in the race and 3 of them you could not support in any way, shape, or form, do not. Vote only, select only candidates that you want to select, and if that is one, so be it.
that's right. Select the one who can do the job.
Next slide. Can I rank a candidate more than once? So I do a great job today. I run for city council, and you remember that I did a great job. You say, okay, I'm going to choose Karen as my first choice, my second, my third, my fourth, and fifth. Now, if you do that, you're not helping me, because it's not as if these rankings are supercharged. The system will interpret that as you're having selected me once as your first choice. And if I'm eliminated from the race, then your ballot has nowhere else to go, and that's the end of your voice in the race. You don't get to select, you don't get to say, hey, if not Karen, then Petula, and if not Petula. So don't do that, right? Or try not to do that. If you select multiple candidates for the same ranking, so because we are doing an effective job today, you decide, okay, I'm going to choose Karen and the Assemblywoman as your first choice. If you do that, that's considered an overvote, and your vote will be invalidated. All is not lost. If you were voting in person, that's one of the system will flag and say, oh, there's something wrong with your vote. And that's one of the times where you can actually ask for up to 2 additional ballots. Now, if you're your second ballot, you're your third, and you make the mistake, then you've invalidated and you don't
Your
have
vote.
So, don't, rule of thumb, 1 candidate per column, and don't, and only 1 candidate per bubble, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Okay? Next slide. Again, it doesn't hurt your second choices, or your second, third, fourth, or fifth, because we don't look at that until or unless your first choice is eliminated. Next slide. So the core message is basically municipal races in New York City only. If you still want to vote for 1 candidate, you can. And we've gone over the whys. We eliminate, you no longer have to worry about being strategic. If I vote for this one, would I, inadvertently elect that one? No. And you don't have to worry about electing someone with less than a majority. Next slide. Okay, so we have another video we'd like to share with you. And this is from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Hi, I'm Pam Harris.
I'm Nayeli Maxon.
I'm Shane Tao.
We're running for Oakland City Council District 4.
For the past 16 years, this seat has been held by dynamic women.
We are 3 well-qualified candidates for City Council.
We are mothers, public servants, and community leaders.
Pam has 20 years of nonprofit finance experience. She can manage any budget.
Nayeli has worked in the District 4 office. She knows the district's issues inside and out.
Shane has worked for the City Council for 5 years. She has the experience to get results.
We're asking for your support on November 6th.
This is a ranked choice election. Vote for us 1, 2, or 3.
You can learn more about us on our websites.
Vote for positive leadership,
Collaborative leadership,
Women's leadership.
Okay, and
Well done.
so basically, if you need additional information, we have a pretty robust website. Visit us at rankthevotenyc.org. This presentation is there. We also have a number of one-pagers, or we have a one-pager in a number of different languages, up to 13 different languages. And if you have questions that we're unable to answer, or maybe you think of a question later, you can reach us at info@rankthevotenyc.org. If you need additional training in your communities, of course, feel free to reach out to the fabulous Ms. Hanley. She has information, or you can email us directly at info@rankthevotenyc.org. And this brings us to the end of the presentation. And so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. And most of all, I thank you for sticking with us. We had some technical difficulties. You hung in there. Thank you so much. And I want to thank my hosts again. Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Assembly Person.
Anytime. Remember, make a vote plan and get ready to rank choice votes. Pastor Neil?
Yeah, we have two questions.
Absolutely.
We have two questions here. One question has to do with if there is not a clear winner and the lowest candidate is removed, how are the votes redistributed? It is evenly distributed amongst the other candidates?
It's distributed based on the choices that the voters indicate on their ballots. So let's say in the example, on my ballot, I had Mr. Rustin first, Ida B. Wells second, and Shirley Chisholm third, and others. When Mr. Rustin is eliminated, they'll look at my ballot and they'll see that I indicated my second choice to be Ida B.
So she gets another vote.
And she'll get another vote. And it'll sit there until Ida B is eliminated. And at that point, they'll look to say, okay, who did Karen select as her third choice? They'll see on my ballot, I indicated Shirley Chisholm. Shirley, my vote will then move to Shirley. I still just have one vote, but I'm basically, I'm telegraphing how I'd like my vote to travel or to be placed if my favorite candidates are eliminated. And this is one of the reasons why we don't have to have runoffs, because when you vote on primary day, that's it. You're indicating through your rankings, in the event no one has a majority, how you want your vote to go, right? So that's one thing I'm not sure that I mentioned that.
Yes, you did, but it almost says that you get, if there's no clear winner, you technically get 4 other votes.
You get 4 attempts.
You get 4 chances to declare who the winner is. Yes.
And I want to emphasize that, yes, the city is saving money by eliminating runoffs, but it's also, we're also saving some money because we don't have to go a second time for this, right? Yeah. And the other thing is, Assemblywoman, is that, runoffs sometimes disenfranchise our communities. Okay? Yes. That because we're working, we're doing all kinds of stuff, and turnout is so low.
Yes, when we look at the history of runoffs, that we don't get the same participation as a general election. And so in this way, we'll have our primary election and our mini runoffs if no one gets 50 plus 1 of the vote. Exactly. Absolutely.
The next question has to do with what is the biggest opposition towards this system, the choice rank voting? What are people saying why they don't like it?
Okay. Well, as with anything new, right, folks, some people say, part of the thing is change, right? It's a big change, right? And so there's opposition to that, based on that. And I also think that some people believe that it may disenfranchise communities. The data has not indicated that, okay? In places in San Francisco, since they've implemented, or the Bay Area, since they've implemented ranked choice voting, people, I can't remember the actual statistic, but the number of people of color who've been elected went up. So, I mean, right now in New York, there's talk about people are saying, okay, it's fine, but people are not educated on it enough.
Yes. Well, I will just quote our earlier statistics that you showed that 75% of the people voted for ranked choice voting as a part of our charter revision. So that indicated that there were 25% of the people who did not want ranked choice voting to be the way that we voted here in New York City. And I will tell you, at the time, I was one of those individuals who voted against it, not on the merits or the content of RCV itself, but because we had made a number of changes to our voting system. And I know, as you were speaking about in terms of change, it takes people a while. So we implemented early voting. We changed the date of the primary from September to June. That alone threw people for a loop. So I thought we should have waited until we got, people were used to voting early and in a different time in terms of the primary, and then we could have put together a robust plan for people to learn this system. Because as you can see, you've been working overtime, I'm working overtime to ensure that people get this information so that they're ready in June, but it's gonna take every one of us to have that conversation. So I think the opposition had a lot to do, as you said, with change, and when that change should have taken place. But it is gonna save us money, and as you can see by the number of people who are running for office, it certainly opened it up to more candidates of colors and of different, political stripes to get into the race. So here we are, at least in New York City.
It's the law of the land, right?
In New York City.
In New York,
New York
well,
State
yes.
hasn't voted for it.
Well, I'm a New Yorker, so, there's no other place, right? New York is the universe.
Do we have one more? I think we have one more.
The last question is, can you select a candidate as two separate choices? I'm trying to get it. Can you select a candidate as two separate choices?
So I think you answered that already. If you do, one of the votes will
it's
be
gone.
invalidated.
Okay.
Right, absolutely.
But I want to talk briefly, Reverend, about the education. I was delighted this week or last week to learn that the city is investing $15 million in an education campaign. And so I believe that by the time primary rolls around, we'll probably be begging them to stop, right? Between that and also our organization did do some exit polling based on, at the special elections, right? And I believe it was like 75% of the people who participated in the poll reported that they had heard of RCV before they got to the poll. So we're not from those districts, but I believe if we were in the districts, we probably would have been inundated with information. So all this to say that I think that I feel confident.
We've invested our dollars well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that is very good. But people also have to, they learn about ranked choice voting, and the thing that we can't tell them is, right, about the candidates themselves. And so now they have to do 2 sets of research, but we're doing all that we can as government officials to make sure that they at least understand RCV. So thank you so much for today and this great presentation.
On behalf of the Dr. Clive E. Neal, whoa, I'm so tall. On behalf of Dr. Reverend Clive E. Neal, the Assembly Member Stephanie Zinham, representing Bedford-Stuyvesant, I should take this mask off, and Crown Heights, and Karen Wharton from Rank the Vote, New York. We are so grateful as a social justice ministry and team for having this presentation and information today. I know it's a lot. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call me. Any member of the social justice team, Ms. Wharton also shared the website and her information, and let's make this happen. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless.
God bless.
God bless.
Alrighty.
We should take this on the road.